What's up, guys? Frank Mancaluso here from Garageaholic. I have so much energy today, and why is that? Because we are moving on. We're gonna be doing rotors and calipers on this E31 S85. We're gonna be using the E39 M5 front rotors. They're 345 by 32 millimeter, and the rears are gonna be 328 by 20 millimeter, all using Porsche 944 S2 brake calipers. They're 4-piston calipers, and we're going to be using a Willwood brake proportioning valve to make sure that we are transferring the brake pressure from the fronts into the rears equally. So stand by, guys. We got a really cool episode coming up. We're going to be making some custom brackets for each of the calipers, and we're going to be fitting these things on and seeing how they look under the new 19-inch unparalleled rep wheels. Stand by. Okay, so let's start off with the fronts. These are from an E39 M5. They're heavy. These are single piece rotors. These are not the floating versions. But the floating versions were like 3 times the cost, and I don't plan to race this thing. So these are 345 diameter by 32 inch thickness. They are a direct fit on the E31s, also the E34s and the E32s. Basically anything E34, E32 directly fits on the E31. Same hub, same spindle, same suspension, all that is exactly the same. So what I want to do is I want to put a rotor retaining nut on here to make sure that this thing is flat, and then I want to fit the caliper on top and see where these two mount locations match up to the mount locations on the actual Porsche 944 S2 caliper. Because it's not going to be the same. We're going to need to make an adaptive bracket. It's just a matter of how do we design the bracket. So let's go through that right now. Okay, let's see here. Here's the hole, and here is the drilled set screw. Oh, this fits. Okay, now that we got the rotor on, it's time to put the calipers on and see where everything falls, what needs to be modified or what needs to be welded. These are the two front calipers. When you install calipers onto a rotor, you want to make sure that the bleeds, these are the bleeds right here, right? These two here on 4-pot calipers, the bleeds are on the top. You always want to have the bleeds on the top because air rises. And when you're bleeding the system, you want the air to rise to the top. Open the bolt, open the screw, and have the air come right on out. So if you have the bleeds up here and you put the rotors like this, well, this is backwards because this is the entrance for the actual fluid. So this guy is actually for the left side. Having said that, this guy has the bleeds on top. It's got the entrance right here, and that fits right over that. So let's compress these pistons. And then what we need to do is we need to put an actual brake line on here. When we put the caliper on and get it all set, we want to compress air into the system so that it holds the caliper in place, and we know exactly where the caliper needs to fit compared to where it's currently mounted on the E31 spindle. All right, guys, I'm making an executive decision here. The fronts are huge. These are 345 millimeter by 32 millimeter wide. These are very large rotors. When I first purchased this set, I was uneducated in what I thought I wanted in a big brake kit. So I got these big rotors, which I love, and I'm not gonna give them up. However, I did modify the front caliper, and you can see here that this caliper is as deep into the throat of the rotor as it can possibly go. And there's still a lot of play here, and that's not good. You want to get, I mean, these are pretty big calipers, generally speaking. They're 4-pot, they have, you know, nice big pads, right? But when you fit it over the whole assembly, whatever. When you fit it over the whole assembly, you'll see that it just doesn't go deep enough. And what's going to happen is just the outer circumference of the rotor right here, the outer perimeter of the rotor is only going to get, you know, the effective braking power. And that's just not good. I mean, what's the point of having big brakes if you don't have the calipers in order to, you know, stop the car with these large rotors? So I am not going to be using the Porsche fronts. I'm actually going to be using the Porsches in the rear. You can see how nice these guys look. This is a pretty nice deep throat, so I'm happy. Deep throat. So this actually does look pretty good. I'm actually happy with the rears. The rears are going to stay. The fronts, I've got to do something different. So I'm going to end up getting rid of the front Porsche calipers. I'm going to be going to F30 4-pot brakes. They are meant for a 345 millimeter rotor, and that's actually going to fit the throat of the actual of the depth of this guy. So I'm going to end up doing that. I'm going to sell those two. I'm going to upgrade to these, and I'm going to revisit this later. But I am going to work on the rears. So let's take a look at the rears real quick. All right, so we're not doing anything with the fronts right now. I have a solution for the fronts, and it's not going to include the Porsche Brembo 4-pot calipers, but the rears will have the Porsche Brembo 4-pot calipers intended for the rear, and it fits on this 330 millimeter rotor right here that I have. So we're gonna set that up on the rear, and we're gonna move forward with that while we wait for our new calipers for the front to come in. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, so I didn't have the best luck with the fronts, but maybe I'll get better luck with the rears. I don't know if, although it doesn't look like the rotor retaining nut's gonna screw on at the right location, so I'm gonna need to drill onto that again, but let's just. Yeah, looks like it might work. Looks like it might work. Let's take a look at the calipers. All right, so there's a couple of complications that I found in the rear side. Let's go through them real quickly. This is the new rotor. It fits over no problem. The hub-centric ring diameter is the same. The problem is that these shoes are meant for a smaller diameter inner shoe set, right? The inner diameter of this rotor is actually slightly larger than the inner diameter of the other one. Therefore, what you thought, this is actually a new brake pad here, that what you thought would actually fit perfectly in line here actually doesn't. It actually kind of rotates a little bit because the diameter of this is slightly smaller than the diameter of this, and therefore it doesn't sit flush. I need to get new brake pads, which actually should be plug and play onto the E31, meant for the E39 M5, which is what this rotor is from. So we need to do that. And then the other thing that we need to do is, in fitting on the caliper, there are obviously direct interferences with the brake shield. So we need to cut the brake shield, and then we need to start putting this on with the rotor in place to see where the actual interferences are so we can make our custom bracket. All right, let's talk brakes really quick. I know that I said I was gonna go with the Porsche 944 S2 calipers all around. And then I said I couldn't make it work in the front, so I was gonna go with a different setup in the front. And then I tried it in the back, and I realized that they're too big and it's not gonna work in the back. So now I'm scrapping the Porsche 944 calipers altogether, and I'm going to a new kind of caliper, and that is these guys. These guys are the E32 135i front 6-pot calipers. These guys are not quite a direct bolt-on to the fronts, but we will be trying to make it work. I did mock test it up. What I needed to do in order to clear larger 32 millimeter wide rotor is I needed to shave the inside of this aluminum just to get it to fit. I know that I could have gone with a 338 millimeter rotor, but the 345 is just bigger. I know I could have gone with a 30 millimeter wide rotor, but I just had to go with the 32. It's just better braking, power, beta braking, heating dissipation. It's just overall better. It's just a little bit more work to get it to work. Now, another reason that I picked this caliper is because it has a removable bracket. That bracket has bolts on this side as well as the bolts on this side that go straight to the actual hub. The reason that this is beneficial for doing a custom type job like this is that you can space them out in both dimensions for rotor diameter and rotor offset very, very easily if you need to. I'm using washers, but I'm obviously going to modify that and get the exact dimension that I need and use custom spacers made out of steel shims. But for mocking up purposes, I was able to shave off enough in the inside in order to fit the 32 millimeter wide rotor in there and get it fit on the exact bolt locations here, which is awesome because I did not want to cut and weld this off and remove it and relocate it. I have to do that on the back, and we'll talk about the back next. But let's get this thing mocked up, okay? And I'll show you exactly the benefits and the drawbacks to doing this, but it will work. So let's take a look. So spinning this guy while sitting in place, it's pretty tough to spin. So I don't want to ruin the rotor. So what I wanted to do was I want to make sure that I have all my clearances of the items that I had chipped out of the caliper in order to make this fit. I think that it's because this is a 32 millimeter and it's a little wide, but it still can work. If I just shave off just a little bit more on the insides of the caliper, I think it'll work just fine. So let's do that too. See back here, spacers there, spacers on the other side. That gets the bracket sitting exactly where I want to. Okay, so it was quite an iterative process to get this caliper to sit exactly where I wanted it to. But the fact that there is a removable bracket as part of this caliper assembly makes things a lot easier to modify because I can space the bracket outward and inward and also side to side. So I was able to use washers to space this out exactly the way I need it so that I can have shims professionally made for both axes, both in and out and side to side. So I'm gonna make that, but right now I've got my dimensions that I need in order to space this perfectly, and as a result, everything is tight and ready to go. Now for the rears, I decided to ditch the Porsche calipers again and decided to go with the 135i E82 calipers. That's what these guys are. They're basically just a two-pot caliper, and these are, again, the E39 M5 rotors for the rear. The park and brake pads need to be procured from the E39 M5 as well to match because the park and brake diameter is slightly larger. But as far as the caliper goes, these two threaded inserts are actually a direct bolt-on to this application. I actually have pads in here, so I'll show you really quick. Not bad, but not ideal. As much as I would love to keep it like this, I just don't think that it's ideal to do that because the caliper is actually placed a little bit too far outward. I think I need to take this and actually move it in just a hair looks like anywhere between 5 and 10 millimeters would be acceptable. But I need to make sure that I don't have any pad overhang on the outside of the rotor here, or else I'm gonna have an indent in the pad and it's gonna create all sorts of noise and vibration. So let's take the rotor off and let's see what we're dealing with in terms of how to move the two locations inward just a hair. Okay, you can see here that the bolts are here and here, and the first one isn't pretty tight. The way that the rotor is situated right now lends itself to have a pretty good spacing between the rotor and here, which means that the pad is actually not fully bedding onto the rotor itself. That's not good. So what we need to do is we need to move this over a little bit. I think what I'm gonna end up doing, because it's probably the easier thing to do, is to cut each one of these individually and then move them in, and just make sure that I maintain the spacing. And as long as I move it completely square, because this is pretty straight, square that way, the allotted distance, I think I'm gonna be okay. All right, so in order to assess and actually cut this, I'm gonna need to remove the brake dust shield, which I can obviously destroy and then discard, but then the hub might get in the way of making good cuts. So in order to actually really get to this, I'm gonna have to disassemble the whole rear suspension, bring this thing out, bench it. I'm gonna have to replace the rear bearings, and basically I'm gonna end up doing all that anyway in later videos this spring, is do all of the rear suspension and the rear diff and all that. So I wanted to basically drop all this down at the same time. And when I do that, guys, is when I'm gonna end up posting this video for the rears, because it's just too involved at this point to just cut and hack at it. Brakes are too important to do that, and I don't wanna do that to you guys. I don't wanna do that to me. So what I wanna do is I wanna wait until I start doing the rear suspension, then I'll pick up with the rear rotors. So I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I am gonna be using those 135i rears. I think that the whole package looks really good. It's gonna be a really slick looking package. I'm gonna color the calipers as well. I'm not sure what color I wanna go with yet. Blue, we'll see. But I'm not gonna be able to do this in this video. I'll have to defer that to a later video, so I'm gonna keep you guys in suspense. All right, hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for keeping up with everything that I've been doing here. I'm slowly growing to give you guys better content, better quality content, better audio, better video. Just generally giving you guys stuff that you want to see and hear. So please tell me what you like. Comment, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Let them all know what I'm doing, guys. I want to get this thing done in the beginning of the summer next year. This thing is gonna be awesome when it's done, and I really want you guys to follow me as I go through this build. All right? Anyway, my name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic, and I am out. Later.